My name is Miriam Calder, and I am 74 years old. In the mirror that morning, I look like the version of myself I still trusted. Neat silver bun, moss green dress, lipstick the color of ripe plums. The dress always made my shoulders set themselves in a proud line. It made me remember who I used to be, when my hands were stronger, and my daughter's voice was not a weather vane for my moods. Before I tell you how things changed, and how I changed, let me welcome you in the way we do here. This is Revenge Stories with Michelle, a home for quiet courage and true endings. If you feel my words, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your voice matters here. Your story matters too. It was Mother's Day, and I arrived at my daughter Elena's house with a paper-wrapped bouquet of lilacs and 2 boxes of lemon sugar cookies for the kids. The little one, B, saw me first and ran, socks skidding on the hardwood.
"Nana Miri!" she squealed, and in that sound I forgave everyone for everything for perhaps the last time in my life. "Happy Mother's Day, Mom," Elena said, stepping from the kitchen. A smile perched on her face like a bird that wanted to fly away before it had to sing. Her husband, Trent, didn't move from the island bar stool. "Grace, Miriam," he corrected with a chuckle, shaking the ice in his glass. "Glad you made it." He always called me the wrong name, then smirked as if my identity were a running joke we were all in on. The boys, Noah and Finn, were stacking blocks into a tower, concentration faces, tongues peeking out. The house smelled like maple bacon and cinnamon. The big front windows washed the room in soft, clean light. It looked like a magazine spread for a happy family. Maybe it was. "Sit," Elena said. "We have something for you." B brought a pink card, handmade, covered in puffy stickers and glitter scars. I kissed her forehead.
"From all of us?" I asked, pretending not to notice Trent lifting his phone, angling it like he wanted to catch a reaction. "Read it out loud," Elena said, "so the kids can hear." Regex. I opened the card. The first line was inked in a looping marker script, a rhyme, one of those silly ones kids learn. "Suppressing lacks purple, daisies are bright. Mists are always around, morning to night." Then the second couplet, written in a firmer hand, a different pen. "We love you, Miriam, but here's what is true. Has house feels smaller whenever it's you." Ambiguity hot pricked the corners of my eyes. Then a third couplet, block letters, unmistakably Trent's printer-straight strokes. "You need more help than we can provide. Seminole Pines. They'll treat you with pride." Silence line was Beckett Dry. Signed, the family. Harry spoke. Then, because silence is always a dare, Trent laughed, long and loud and unkind. Elena pressed her fingers to her mouth as if gasping, but I saw the smile she was hiding. The boys, confused, giggled because adults were making a sound. "God, did you see her face?" Trent said into his phone as if to no one and everyone. 10 out of 10. "It's just a joke," Elena said quickly. "Mom, don't be so sensitive." Banka pressed into my side. "Nana, why are you watery?" I closed the card. The glitter flaked like dandruff onto my lap. "I should go." "Mom," Elena sighed, exasperated already. "Please don't start. You know we love you. We're just being honest. You've been more present. You forget things. You make multiple casseroles like, we can't eat that much casserole." Sembler twirled his glass by its stem. "Silver Pines has watercolor classes. And a shuttle. Think of the shuttle, Miriam. Very safe." "Grandma isn't a thing," Noah said, staring up at his parents with something in his eyes I wanted to rescue and wasn't sure I could. Mommy stood.
The room slanted, not because I was dizzy, but because a life will tilt itself to new gravity in a single sentence. I set the cookies on the counter, next to a vase of tulips that didn't need me, and I placed the card on top of the boxes like a paper brick weighing down something sweet. "Happy Mother's Day," I said, and left. I live in Gulford, a coastal town in the Pacific Northwest where salt gets into everything: your hair, your hinges, your memory. My little house is the color of fog with a green porch that John, my late husband, painted the year our daughter left for college. He liked that color, said it made the house look awake even in November. When I sat on that porch that night, the card beside me, I realized the humiliation had burned away something that had been clinging to me for years. The habit of making excuses for other people's thoughtlessness. I made tea.
I considered calling Elena to tell her I knew they had crossed a line, that jokes, sharpened into weapons, changed the shape of a family. But what weapon had I been using against myself all these years? Politeness? Hope? I went to the bedroom and pulled out my patchwork tin box, the one I kept behind winter sweaters, like it was a secret I could outsmart. Inside were documents John and I collected over 49 years of doing life the long way. Deeds, old insurance, a curled Polaroid of John in the driveway with a paint roller in his hand. His grin, all teeth and mischief. And they were newer. A letter from Aunt Lena in a yellowing envelope, written when I was a young mother. "Mike, if this ever finds you old enough to have stopped apologizing for being smart, remember the apartment in Funchal, Madeira. I bought it in '84. It's been let to British retirees ever since. My attorney, Dr. Mendez, will transfer the title to you on your 70th birthday. Don't tell your husband if you think he'd be insulted. Some men are. Love, L." I had not told John, not because he was small, but because he was proud, and I didn't want to make his provider heart feel less useful. He died 6 years ago, and I kept living like a woman who was polite about her existence. Kraina. There were also CDs at the credit union, laddered, as the young banker had put it, so something matured every 6 months. There were dividends from a small investment I'd made years ago in the Marina Co-op, when a neighbor invited us in for a friends and family round, and I'd said yes, even though John had laughed and called it a dock dream. The marina was sold last year to a resort chain for an amount that made my hands shake. My little slice became a not little slice of money that I didn't touch. Faraj. Had I given Elena money? Oh, yes. I had been generous in ways that make me blush now to tally. Tuition gaps, a down payment loan that everybody stopped calling a loan. $37,000 here, $4,800 there, $120 cash in an envelope for the kids' field trips, a new fridge when their old one died with a moan at 2 a.m, grocery runs, gas money, babysitting I pretended to love because love was the only thing I still felt I was good at. And then, the humorless card. And apartment. I opened my laptop. I changed passwords and then changed habits. No more automatic transfers to Elena's account. I emailed Mr. Hayes, the attorney who had filed John's will, and asked for an appointment to rewrite mine. I messaged Dr. Mendez in Madeira to confirm details on the apartment Aunt Lena had left me. He replied within the hour, polite Portuguese formality in clipped English. Yes, Senora Calder. Title in your name since your 70th birthday. Keys are with a management firm. Rent has accrued. Sickness had accrued. Fonfis had accrued. I exhaled like a kettle taken off the burner just before it shrieks. Then I did something I told myself I'd do one day. I bought a one-way ticket to Madeira for 2 Fridays from that night. Before bed, I wrote 2 letters on thick cream stationery I'd been saving for a moment when my handwriting mattered.
To Elena, you are my only child. I am tired of standing in a room and being asked to imagine it without me. I am not a burden. I'm a boundary you forgot how to respect. I will be gone when you read this. The monthly transfers are discontinued. The joint emergency account is closed. In my new will, the grandchildren have a trust they can access at 25 if they keep a real relationship with me, not a chore one. I want you to be well. I won't be your bank. I won't be your punchline. Mother to Trent. I heard your Silver Pines conversations. I have a place with citrus trees and sea light and neighbors who do not find me funny when I am not. You will now stand on your own 2 feet. Consider this a courtesy notice. Miriam Calder. I sealed both letters and went to sleep under the soft whir of the fan, listening to my house remember how to breathe. I made blueberry pancakes the next morning and fed half to Mrs. Klein's cat through the porch rail because Leopoldo is an aristocrat who visits everyone's porch like a mayor on campaign. Mrs. Klein, 81, purple visor, lungs like paper lamps, waved from her yard. You look fierce, she called. Court date or new adventure? Adventure, I said. Good, she said. Get one before the world closes for the afternoon. At the bank, Carla at the desk blinked at my instructions. You're closing the joint account with your daughter? She frowned at her screen as if the numbers were unsure how to feel. Yes, I said. It's not an emergency fund if the alarm is running every day. Carla smiled before she could stop herself. She moved some things with a couple of authoritative clicks. All right, Miss Calder. Done? Anything else? I'm updating beneficiaries, I said. She printed forms. My pen didn't tremble at all. Mr. Hayes saw me at 2. We can draft a new will, no difficulty, he said, his voice the low solace of a man who had taken early retirement and then realized he preferred the company of problems to golf. Are you sure you want to bypass your daughter? Bypass, no, I said. Detour, yes. I explained the trust for the grandchildren, accessible at 25, contingent upon yearly, voluntary contact with me, calls, visits, letters, a little shared life. Not proof of affection, just proof of presence. I won't pay children to love me, I said, but I can subsidize the time love needs. Mr. Hayes nodded, tapping his pen. And the remainder? I want to start something here, I said. A microgrant circle for older women in Gulford who find themselves between a disaster and a new plan. We'll call it the Green Porch Fund.
$1,000 grants for bills or training or a reliable used car. No hoops, just a conversation and a receipt. I paused. A place to sit, be seen, and be believed. You're building a porch, he said, smiling, in a world of doors. Yes. He slid me a draft by the next morning. I signed it, and in that signature there was a quiet that felt like a room with windows open on both sides. Emissions called twice the day before my flight. I didn't pick up. I wanted to leave cleanly, not as a mother lured back by tears and a promise that was really a plea for a bridge loan. Bader had Soraya, a retired cop who runs safe home checks and paper-thin investigations for women who need receipts for their feelings. A vibe check? She asked, amused. On your own family? On their plans, I said, and told her about Silver Pines and the card. She made a little sound, not quite disgust, not quite sympathy.
You want me to pull threads? See if guardianship papers are being drafted, wills being tinkered with, like that? Yes. I gave her names. She gave me reassurance disguised as procedure. I'll run the public record first. If there's smoke, I'll go looking for the stovepipe. While Soraya noodled around in county databases, I put my hand on everything I would leave behind. The framed photo of John in hip waders, holding a fish too small to brag about, the ceramic bowl Bea had made in kindergarten, with a thumbprint baked into the glaze, the quilt my mother had pieced together out of our old shirts. Leaving is an art. The trick is to take only the best stories and the clothes that forgive you for everything. That afternoon, I walked to Harbor Books and told Nate, the owner, that I'd be away a while. "We'll hold your book club chair," he said. He looked over my shoulder toward the town square where a farmer's market was setting up.
The world kept going the way it always does, in circles and loops and the occasional jagged line. At home, I set the 2 letters on the kitchen table with Elena's spare house key beside them. The key was on a leather fob. I wrote a 3rd note in smaller script. Sniff. When you are kind to me without wanting anything, I will accept this back. I put my suitcase by the door. Then, I sat on the green porch and waited for the dusk to come on like lamps rising in an old theater. There's a mercy to darkness that daylight can't give. The way it makes each lit window a story, and each story a possibility. Probira smells like oranges flirting with the sea. Funchal's hills are steep, the streets cobbled like someone tiled them with purpose, and the sky looks as if a glassblower had just exhaled. I have not breathed that easy since John's hospital beeps blurred into a line. Dr. Mendez's office was shaded and spare. He stood when I entered.
We inspected each other like 2 people who are old enough to have outlived nonsense. "Señora Calder," he said, "Bem-vinda." He handed me a set of brass keys on a ring with a small wooden tag, Rua das Mimosas, 3C. I walked there alone, dragging my small suitcase like a polite dog. The building was cream-colored, balconies curled with ironwork, bougainvillea dripping feminine disregard. 3C was high enough to see the sea and close enough to hear the neighbor across the hall playing a trumpet badly and bravely. Inside, the apartment was neat, sun-soft, decorated in white and wood. A bowl on the entry table held 3 smooth stones painted with thin blue vines. A shelf by the balcony doors sagged a little under the weight of books left by temporary residents who wanted to be thought of afterward. Travelogues, romances, a biography of a modern winemaker whose face was a history. In the kitchen, on the counter under the window, was an envelope with my name. Inside, a note from Luis and Felipa, the property managers. "Bem-vinda, señora." Your aunt loved this place. She wanted it to be lived in, not just accounted for. There is coffee. The bakery downstairs is noisy at 5. This is the price of fresh bread. The neighbors on the left argue kindly. This is the price of love. The light in late afternoon is yours. "Please take it," I cried quietly and without apology. I stayed 3 days in a fog of sweetness and sleep, waking to the pigeons like old ladies gossiping on the rooftop, shopping for groceries as if I hadn't done it 1,000 times before. Filipa took me for poncha, Madeira's rum and honey elixir, and told me stories about longevity as if she were giving me instructions for a houseplant. Sunday, water, friends, a purpose, a secret. If you are missing 2, you can substitute with dancing. On the 4th morning, Shania opened my email and found a single-line message from Soraya back in Guilford. "Found smoke. Call me when you're ready." I called. "Your son-in-law is sloppy," she said, as if telling me the weather. 2 weeks ago, he downloaded a guardianship petition template from the county website. Yesterday, he called Dr. Combs, a psychiatrist who does capacity evaluations, and asked about expedited scheduling for a 74-year-old who forgets burners and repeats herself. "I haven't forgotten a burner in 30 years, I said. "I figured as much," Soraya said. He also asked a probate attorney about the process for selling properties to fund care. I pictured my green porch, my lilacs, my quilt, my cupboards that knew the shape of my hands. I pictured them cataloged in a spreadsheet under the heading, "Liquidate." "Don't panic," Soraya said. "I'm assembling a file. dates, screenshots, phone logs. If this turns into anything, you'll have receipts. Thank you, I said, and meant it in the unsentimental way of someone whose life is being tidied by a stranger for the first time. After the call, I stood on the balcony and stared at the water so hard it stared back. Trent wanted guardianship like a key to a candy store. Elena wanted... I didn't know what she wanted anymore. Maybe relief. Maybe applause for doing a hard thing to an old person. I took out a notebook and wrote 3 headings. Protection, porch, peace. Under each, I listed an action. Protection. Hire a local attorney in Guilford to file a preemptive declaration of my wishes. No guardianship petitions without my counsel present. No decisions made by people who laughed at me. Porch. Seed the Green Porch Fund with $50,000 and recruit a small circle of wise women to sit with me on Wednesday afternoons when I'm back and open envelopes and say yes more than no. Peace. Live in Madeira for a month. Learn the bus schedule.
Buy a bowl in the market from the same old man until he recognizes me. Teach my body to walk hills again. Then decide. I emailed Mr. Hayes. I emailed Dr. Mendez. I texted Mrs. Klein a photo of oranges and a caption. I think I live in a painting. She wrote back, find a man who can peel one in a single curl. I laughed, and the laugh sounded like a girl's. Elena did not call. Trent sent a text the length of an ad. Sentenced. We're worried. You're being manipulative. Disappearing like this is proof you need structure. Call me so we can arrange intake at Silver Pines. Resemble and deleted 6 replies. I settled on Dordorf. No. Dismissal. His number. Instead, I called Elena's grandmother's friend, Rosa, who had mothered me when I was a new mother. Come home when your face changes, she said, illusionist that she is. Not before. Emplitz ira brava and Cámara de Lobos. Rode a toboggan down a lane because life is short, and the men in white would stop one day. I learned to say bom dia to the lady with the lemons, as if the words were prayer beads. I bought a scarf that made me look like a paintbrush. Every night, I wrote in the notebook, like a person who finally understood that thoughts have to be moved from brain to paper, or they stomp their feet in your dreams. This her 12th day, Philippa knocked. You have guests, she said, eyes bright with a thrill of good gossip. A man who looks like a suit, and a woman who looks like she wants to rescue the man from his own decisions. Unresolved. I opened the door to Elena and Trent standing in my hall, as if they had invented travel. My first thought was stupid. How did they find me? Then I remembered. People who want to manage you always find you. Elena's cheeks were splotched with airplane fatigue. Mom, she said, as if the word had both apology and accusation inside it. Trent lifted a folder like a prop. We came to help, he said. Filico, behind them, crossed herself and vanished.
Come in, I said, because I was raised by people who offered chairs even to wolves if the wolves had brought a story. We sat at the little oak table under the window. The light made everyone honest in spite of themselves. I'm sorry about the card, Elena said. It was supposed to be funny. It was supposed to be final, I said. She flinched. Maybe, she said. Trent placed the folder on the table and tapped it like a metronome. We made some calls. There's a doctor, Dr. Combs, who can evaluate your capacity and recommend the right level of support. This is not about control, Miriam. It's about safety. Like the safety I felt reading your rhyme, I asked. Smiling so gently, the smile could have been mistaken for kindness. He didn't blink. It wasn't malicious. Malice isn't required for harm, I said. Elena tried again. We're scared, she said. What if you fall? What if you leave the stove on? What if I keep paying your mortgage? I said softly.
That startled her into silence. What if I am not the fragile story you need me to be in order to feel brave? Trent leaned back, crossed an ankle over his knee. We can do this the easy way, he said, voice coach slick. Or the hard way, with lawyers. I turned the folder to face me, opened it. The first page was a guardianship petition draft with blanks for my ailments. The second was a list of my assets, as they imagined them. The house on Hawthorne Street, mine. A 2011 Toyota, mine. No cash to speak of. Hilarious. The third page was a cost breakdown of Silver Pines with a note in Trent's lines. Sell the house. Cover 2 years. Reassess. I slid the folder back and closed it with a sigh, as if tired of the game. You flew across the world to present me with paperwork you could have faxed from a strip mall, I said. Elena, you look exhausted. Trent, you look pleased with yourself. Why are you here? Elena's eyes filled. Because I didn't know where else to go, she said. It's like I woke up in a story where I'm the bad guy and I don't remember the first chapter. I poured water into 3 glasses. We drank like there was a test. Here, what's going to happen, I said. We're 2018. I meet to remove the channel of self about the groups. I probably spent it behind there's a test. I will not be evaluated by your doctor. I will not be admitted anywhere you choose for me. If you ever try to pull papers again, there will be lawyers, yes, but not the ones you hired. In return, I will make you a different offer. Trent snorted. Let's hear it. Go home, I said. Clean your house without waiting for me. Pay your bills without expecting a deposit first. If you want a relationship with me, build one from the part of you that loved me before you learned spreadsheets. Elena's face crumpled. I'm sorry, she whispered, the words dark with fatigue and sincerity, and something else that could grow into a better thing. I have been not myself. Will you leave him? I asked, nodding at Trent as if he were a lamp I was deciding whether to keep.
Her eyes flitted to him and away. That's not a simple question, she said. It's a simple answer, I said, and that made Trent put both feet on the floor. He stood. We're done here, he said, and reached for the folder. Actually, I said, covering it with my palm, I think I'll keep the prop. He held my gaze too long. I stared back because shame is easier to kill in daylight. At the door, he said, You're making a mistake. Finally, I said, one that belongs to me. They left. Philippa reappeared with a tray of coffee as if she had been waiting just outside the door like a stagehand. Family? She asked. Yes, I said. Then this is medicine, she said, setting the tray down. Drink! I laughed until I nearly cried. Then I cried until I nearly laughed. I stayed in Madeira 3 more weeks and returned to Gulford with a tan that made Mrs. Klein purse her lips and say, You look like you believed in something. I did. I believed in myself and in what could happen if I gave other women evidence of their own possibilities. The Green Porch Fund opened on a Wednesday with a pot of coffee and 4 folding chairs on my literal green porch. I had put up a notice at the library and a post on the town board. Micro grants for women 60+ in Gulford. $1,000. No essays. Bring a need, a plan, and your kindest self. Wednesdays, 1 to 4 p.m. Miriam C. The first week, 3 women came. Maritza, 63, needed money to fix the transmission on her car so she could keep delivering prescriptions to shut-ins for the pharmacy. Jean, 70, needed a new dental partial because her old one rattled and made her avoid smiling like it was a luxury. Poppy, 68, wanted $1,000 to put toward a computer so she could design the quilts her hands were too stiff to piece. We gave all 3 checks. We took photos of hands, not faces, with their permission, and tacked them on a corkboard under the word beginning. By the 3rd Wednesday, there were 7 women and a man. Clark, 69, who arrived with his sister Ivy, shy and blinking. "He cooks for me," Ivy said. "We need a better stove." The burner tilts. The eggs slide to the corner like they're trying to run. We gave them the grant and the names of 2 reliable second-hand appliance men who wouldn't take one look at the siblings and triple their, quote, "We were building a circle without permission from anyone who thought circles should be squares." I didn't invite Elena. I didn't block her either. I just made a new perimeter around my life where a person could approach only if they carried respect like a passport. Soraya knocked on my door on a Tuesday with a manila envelope that made my palms cool with that particular fear reserved for parents and taxpayers. "Your son-in-law's dumber than he thinks," she said, by way of good afternoon. "He tried to push the guardianship through the back door, ex parte, claiming you were at immediate risk. The judge is an old colleague of mine. He flagged it. Said it smelled like old broccoli." She handed me the file, but that's not the real story. She flipped to a printout. Bank transfers from Elena's joint account into an LLC in Trent's name, Tronwell Consulting. The amounts were round, regular, $2,000, $2,000, $2,000, 7 times in 3 months. There was also a cashier's check from Elena's personal account to a lawyer in a neighboring county specializing in asset protection. "Here's the part you'll hate," Soraya said, and set a voice recorder on the table. She hit play. Trent's voice. "She's in Madeira, for God's sake. That's not a stable person. If we can get temporary guardianship, we sell the house, pay down the HELOC, and reset." Another voice, the attorney's humid with caution. "Hey, you need a doctor's note." Trent. "I'll get one." Click. My stomach made that hollow elevator drop. "Elena?" I asked, my voice doing something tight. "Complicit by proximity," Soraya said. "But she hasn't signed anything." I think he's flying the plane alone and telling her it's a bus. We created a counter plan that afternoon. Mr. Hayes filed the declaration of volition we'd drafted, a tidy instrument stating in polite legalese that I was choosing my own life. We included a letter from my primary physician noting my excellent cognition, a statement from my bank indicating there had been no unusual financial activity on my accounts for which I hadn't provided written authorization, and, because I'm my mother's daughter, a signed letter from the librarian verifying that I had led a book talk without forgetting my own plot. Sometimes, to beat a story, you have to add a better story. I didn't want to ruin Trent. Ruin is loud and yanks at you later when you're trying to sleep. I wanted to disarm him. I wanted Elena to see him with the lights on. I hosted a porch potluck the first Saturday in July. The women from the fund brought salads with suspicious mayonnaise. Mrs. Klein, under a hat big enough to shade 3 lives, brought lemonade that tasted like summer secrets. I invited Pastor Lee from the church near the marina because she laughs with her whole face, and Deputy Orrin because you need someone who knows all the code words for trouble to be in your yard while you are confronting it. I also invited Elena and told her to come without Trent. She arrived in flat sandals and apology eyes. "I made black bean salad," she said, and set the bowl down as if it might refuse the table. The porch was full of women Elena had never seen because she had never looked where life gets built when nobody is filming it. We ate. We listened to Poppy talk about selling her first quilt pattern to an online magazine. Maritza announced that the pharmacy had doubled her route and given her a raise. Ivy said soft, "The eggs don't run anymore." Elena stood on the steps and watched as if she were at a museum exhibit of hope. She looked young and old, rich and broke, sure and lost. When the sun slid toward the water, I took Elena to the side yard, where the lavender grows like it thinks it's immortal. "You married a man who likes angles," I said. "I prefer circles." "We're going to test your geometry." She swallowed. "What do you mean?" I showed her copies of the guardianship petition draft, the bank transfers to Tronwell, the attorney retainer, and Soraya's transcript. I didn't look at her face until the end because I didn't want her reaction to edit my sentences. When I did look, I saw something honest. Shock, then recognition, then a brief, savage rage she tried to bite down. "He said we were consolidating," she whispered. "He is consolidating you," I said. Her shoulders dropped. I thought we were saving the family," she said. "And he was saving the family from you." "Every villain wraps himself in family," I said kindly. "It's better than a cape." She laughed, a wet little exhale. "What do I do?" she asked. And it was a question asked by a child to a mother and by a woman to the future. "You tell the truth," I said. "First to yourself, then to the kids, then to a good lawyer. Then you call the bank and freeze anything that moves without your say-so, and you don't go home tonight." She blinked. "Where do I go?" "Here," I said, pointing at a guest room window. "Or to Pastor Lee's, or to a hotel. Anywhere but beside a man who turns your mother into a ledger item." She put her face in her hands and said something I wish every judge could hear. I knew. I didn't know anything specific, but I knew. I can't believe it took a file folder and lemonade for me to act. "Most revolutions start on porches," I said. She laughed again, then cried. And then it was done. The moment people call decision as if a decision is a sharp click and not 1,000 little weights shifting the plate you're balancing. That night, she slept in my guest room, and I left the hall light on like I used to when she was 15 and practicing coming home later. The next 2 weeks unfolded like weather maps, fronts meeting, storms building, rain falling. Elena retained Carter and Lou, a sober pair who looked like they were allergic to nonsense. They unfurled a temporary protective order that kept Trent out of the house for 14 days, while accounts were audited. Trent tried to look indignant and landed on sullen. He hired a lawyer who advertised on bus benches, and you could feel the caliber disparity like you can feel the pound of a cheap shoe on good wood. Deputy Orrin served the papers with a howdy and a smirk he didn't bother hiding. "Play stupid games," he muttered as Trent signed and scowled. Soraya delivered the guardianship transcript to Mr. Hayes, who filed it under "weapons we will not have to use because they already did the job." Trent's petition evaporated like breath on glass. He had not expected resistance. He certainly hadn't expected a congregation of older women eating potato salad while they strategized around him like he was a poorly behaved raccoon. The children spent 3 nights with me. We ate cereal for dinner and watched old black and white movies where people said clever sentences instead of yelling. Noah asked if his mom was okay. "Yes," I said. "She's learning new math." "What kind?" he asked. "How to subtract someone who keeps trying to divide you," I said. He nodded as if 12-year-old boys are born knowing exactly what you mean when you talk about fractions of the heart. On the 4th day, Elena met me on the porch. "I called Silver Pines this morning," she said. "I told them my mother will never be a resident, and if my husband called again, they should direct him to my attorney." "Excellent," I said. "What did they say?" "They said, 'Have a nice day,' in a voice that meant something else," she said, and we clinked coffee mugs like conspirators. Trent finally wrote me a letter. A real one, like we were in the 19th century, and he'd been told a stamp could solve his problems. Miriam, I am disappointed in your behavior. You have made Elna hysterical. This guardianship was about care, not control. You have undermined your own longevity by refusing appropriate accommodation. If you continue to interfere in my family, I will pursue legal remedies. Trent. I read it to Mrs. Klein over lemonade, and she laughed so hard she had to pat her chest with a paper napkin. That boy wrote longevity, like he earned the right to it at the hardware store, she said. You want me to write back with my red pen? No, I said. I'm going to do something much more destructive. What's that? I'm going to ignore him, I said, and we toasted to the most insulting act in any language. I wasn't done, though. I wrote one more letter to my grandchildren. I did not mention their father's name or their mother's marriage or any adult thing that would burden them. Instead, I told them the story of the green porch. When your grandfather painted it, he was trying to say our house would always be awake to the possibility of you. We wanted a place you could see from the street and think, that looks like a good conversation. When you are grown, you may forget the color. Remember the promise. Our home is a place people are more important than plans. I enclosed 3 lemons from the tree Mrs. Klein keeps in a pot by her steps. Plant the seeds if you dare, I wrote. It's a long game. We play those here. Trent's last stand was a hurried status conference in the county courthouse, a beige room where Hope goes to drink from a styrofoam cup. He argued that I was flighty and a risk to herself and the community because I had fled the country. Mr. Hayes blinked slowly as if bored on purpose. Your Honor, he said to Judge Bryson, a woman whose resting face was justice. Ms. Calder is a U.S. citizen who visited Portugal to see an apartment she owns. She has lived independently for years, manages her finances, and has provided medical verification of cogent faculties. We have evidence her son-in-law attempted to obtain guardianship ex parte by misrepresenting her condition. We would like this matter dismissed and counsel for Mr. Yates cautioned against further abuse of process. Judge Bryson looked over her reading glasses at Trent's bus bench lawyer. Counsel? She asked. Bus bench shuffled papers. We were acting in good faith, Your Honor. Your faith is not the subject of this hearing, she said. Your client's overreach is. She signed the dismissal with a flourish and looked at me, then at Elena, and in that look there was something like, build your porch. Or maybe that was a projection. Sometimes you have to supply your own subtitles. Outside, on the courthouse steps, Elena took my hand. I'm going to file, she said in a voice that had the steel of a bridge in it. For divorce? I asked. For myself, she said. Then, yes. We stood there and watched a bus go by with an advertisement for discounted cremations. Life is very funny on purpose sometimes. Autumn came in with its cardigan. The fund had cut 19 checks and taken in 14 more from people who saw the corkboard at the library and brought us cash in envelopes with notes that said things like, for dignity, and for my mother who should have had this. Elena rented a smaller place, a cottage near the marsh where the reeds whisper and nobody lives who imagines they are better than grasses. The kids drew a map of their weeks in colored pencil. Dad's apartment, Mom's cottage, Nana's green porch. They taped the map to the fridge like a spell. On a Sunday in November, the kind of day the sky sits on your shoulder like a loyal crow, my porch filled with women and casseroles. Elena arrived late, hair damp from the rain, carrying a shoebox. I made you something, she said, handing it to me like a petition. Inside were cards, 20 of them, each written by someone who had sat on my porch and left with a check and a little more of herself. Maritza wrote, I'm driving farther than I have in years, and all of it is away from my old life. Ivy wrote, Clark makes eggs and laughs again. Poppy enclosed a printout of her pattern in a magazine, a steady black line across a field of white, and on top, a card from Elena. Lilacs are purple. Your porch is green. You are the bravest woman I've ever seen. I'm sorry I forgot what love was for. I won't again. Not ever. Not anymore. Elena. I cried because I am made like that and because sometimes you have to let water carve new banks. Do you forgive me? She asked, small and big at once. I do, I said, and I forgive myself for staying in rooms where I was asked to explain my presence. She nodded like that was the real gift. Come sit, I said, and patted the chair next to mine. She sat. We passed plates. We told stories in the only way that ever keeps families from repeating themselves, out loud. I will be 80 soon enough. The lemons we planted in a pot by the back steps will probably not fruit in my lifetime. I am fine with that. I like planting for people I will not meet. My contributions will be anonymous and juicy. Elena texts me photos sometimes from the marsh. Egrets like question marks. She writes me on Tuesdays, even when she has nothing to say, which is the best time to say something. The kids come on Fridays after school. We do a no-screen supper and talk about what people said to them that day that sounded true and what sounded like sales. Trent sent me a holiday card with a photo of him on a ski slope, alone. I did not open it. I forwarded my portion of the HELOC to Elena's attorney, who negotiated his property claims with the efficiency of someone who never skipped a math class. Madeira is still there, with its light that doesn't care about my small dramas. I go for a month each spring. Philippa keeps biscuits in the cupboard now. Because you like something at 4, she says, and the trumpet across the hall has improved to the point of being balcony-worthy. Sometimes when I'm on Rua das Mimosas, I see a woman my age walking with a bag of oranges, and I think she might be me in another story where Elena never apologized and I never forgave.
In that version, I become a legend to myself and a lesson to my daughter. And the fund still opens on Wednesdays because the math still checks out. Women plus money plus porch equals miracle. Symmetry. Fraction is better. On Mother's Day, the grandchildren brought a card they had made with too much glue. I opened it and read out loud because I like to hear good words in the open air. Nana, your porch is where the world is nice. You taught us lemon seeds need time and spice. You taught us love is not a chore to do. Sunlight and staying with a down and staying with a view. Noah, Finn, and Bee. Everyone clapped like I had won a prize. I suppose I had. The prize was the room itself, and the people inside it, and the way the future looked less like a debt, and more like a door we would walk through together, carrying a bowl of something we made with our own hands. Redraw paint on the steps as chipped, where people have stood because people stand there. We will repaint it in spring. Bee wants to help.
I will let her hold the brush. I will say, start at the edges, then fill the middle. She will say, like forgiveness, and I will say, exactly. People like to say, after the storm, everything is calm. That's not true. After a real storm, the ground is soggy, branches are down, and you're walking around in borrowed boots saying, okay, what does that smell? That's what life was like in the first weeks after Trent's guardianship stunt collapsed. Elena stayed in my guest room for 12 nights, then moved into the Marsh cottage with the kids. The cottage was rental brown and came with blinds that rattled like loose teeth. But the neighborhood was quiet, and nobody there pretended their lives were perfect. I liked that. She spent her mornings on the phone with lawyers and banks and insurance companies, which is its own full-time job if you've ever tried to pull your name out of the financial knots a manipulator has tied around you. Afternoons, she called clinics for extra nursing shifts to stack up hours and money. Evenings, she sat on my porch with a legal pad, planning next steps like a field general except in yoga pants. I watched. Not in the I don't trust you way, in the I want to memorize this new you way. Because there's a moment in a grown child's life, if you're lucky, where the performance they've been giving the world falls apart, and what stands up afterward is not a role, it's a person. That's what I was seeing. And guilt. I saw guilt too. Heavy. Sitting on her shoulders like a sleeping dog. And I'll be honest with you, I let the dog sit there a little while. Guilt can be cruel, but sometimes it's also the only thing heavy enough to keep a person from sliding right back downhill. I didn't nag her. I didn't tell her, I told you so. I did hand her one of the green porch fund index cards we give women when they first sit with us. What happened wasn't your fault. What you allowed was. Both can be true. Only one is yours to fix. She read it. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she said, I understand. With a voice like someone slowly peeling off a bandage that's been there too long. That was the start of her own math. The first Friday after Elena moved out, I brought over a basket, 2 pans, 2 real coffee mugs, not chipped, a little basil plant, and a cheap but reliable lamp. I didn't tell her, here, let me set you up. I told her, here's some light. The kids were there, buzzing like bees. Finn had turned the closet under the stairs into my den, which meant a blanket on the floor, a flashlight, and a stack of comic books. Bee had taped her drawings on the fridge in layers. Noah had claimed the tiny back bedroom and told his sister solemnly, you cannot come in unless you knock and present a password, and the password changes every day. She said, the password is marshmallow. He said, wrong, so you clearly need training. Elena was in the kitchen, barefoot, hair up, eyes tired, soft. It's not much, she said. It's enough, I said. That became rule number 1. In my house for years, we had unspoken rules like, don't bother Trent when he's thinking, and don't contradict Mom, or she'll feel judged. We didn't call them rules. We called them being considerate. Funny how be considerate always meant don't upset the man who is upset all the time anyway. Not anymore. At the Marsh Cottage, we made new rules. We wrote them on a whiteboard, and the kids helped. We don't talk bad about Nana. Ever. Everyone cleans what they touch. Even adults. If you yell out of anger, you apologize out loud. Not just with sorry. No phones at dinner, even if it's cereal. We tell the truth. Even if someone's face moves when they hear it. Elena stood there with the marker, staring at that last one. Her bottom lip trembled. Number 5 is going to hurt, she said. It already did, I said.
Noah added one more rule in blue. 6. We're a team. Teams don't hide stuff. B insisted on stickers. So the rules had star stickers and heart stickers and one unicorn, which Finn said, really is not structurally relevant. And B said, unicorns are structurally relevant to all happy houses. Elena laughed so hard she had to sit down. She wasn't laughing like that a lot back then. That was new. I watched that laugh like you'd watch a little flame in a cold cabin. Here's the part nobody tells you when you start giving older women direct money with no hoops. Word spreads faster than gossip in a hair salon. By August, the Green Porch Fund wasn't just 3 women and a folding table. It was lines. Nightlife. Lighten. We put out a sign-up sheet so we didn't have folks waiting in the road. We expanded porch hours. We got envelopes in the mail from people who'd moved away years ago and heard, Miriam is doing something. and inside were 20s, 50s, little notes.
One envelope had 3 crumpled singles and a post-it that said, "It's not much, but this town kept me alive in '82, so here you go." We kept every note. We built a wall of thank you paper like prayer flags. Women came with stories that were not tidy. One woman, Darla, 61, truck driver's shoulders, spoke in a voice that had corners. "My son took my car," she told us jaw tight, "said he'd bring it back in 2 hours. That was 8 months ago. It's in his name now because he made me sign something I couldn't read without my glasses. I need $1,000 to buy a junker so I don't lose my night shift job." She looked at us and said, "Please don't tell me I should talk it out with him." I am done talking. I got no voice left for that man. We didn't tell her to talk it out. We gave her $1,000 and the number of Soraya, who acts allergic to adult children who treat their parents like car rental agencies. One woman, June, 68, sat with her hands shaking in her lap.
My landlord raised the rent and told me if I can't afford it, maybe it's time for me to think about assisted living. That's what they call warehouses now. Assisted living. I want to stay in my apartment. I've been there 22 years. I just need help bridging 2 months while I get my substitute teaching job back for the fall. We gave her the money, and Pastor Lee gave her a hug that looked like upholstery. June sobbed into that hug like the hug was oxygen. Then we had Clara. Class was 75, tiny, soft-spoken, hair so white it almost glowed. She wore a cardigan in July. She sat at the edge of a porch chair like she didn't want to leave an imprint. "I need $1,000 to break a lease," she whispered. "Okay," I said. "Tell us more." "My grandson moved in with me, and now he brings friends. Loud friends. He tells me I should go stay with my sister in Anchorage. I don't have a sister in Anchorage." We all sat very still.
"And," Clara added, "I think he might be selling the pills from my kitchen. I don't want to be there when the police come. He told me if I leave, he'll handle the place, which means I'll never get my security deposit back, and I can't afford a new one without it. So I need $1,000 so I can sign a lease on the senior complex over on Alder Street. I don't want to get him in trouble. I just want to leave before I end up in trouble that has my name on it." We didn't ask a single question about what kind of pills. We didn't judge that she didn't want to press charges. We didn't tell her it's still your grandson. We gave her $1,000, and Soraya made 2 calls, and Clara had keys to a new place by Friday. That's when I realized the fund wasn't little anymore, and little money wasn't enough, because sometimes $1,000 wasn't the barrier. Sometimes the barrier was nobody will believe me when I say this is happening, or I don't know who to trust, or I am ashamed and I don't want that shame recycled back to me as advice. So we formalized something that was already happening in the shadows. Porch Circle. Porch Circle sounds like a knitting club, which is perfect because it keeps nosy people away. It's not a knitting club. It's a Thursday night table where women sit around with iced tea and we handle the hard stuff out loud. There are rules. You tell the truth. Nobody interrupts. Nobody fixes unless you are asked to fix. We don't carry each other's secrets into places with men who wear ties and call it advice. We believe you. That last part is the spine. Elena started sitting in with us, not as a daughter, as a participant. She came the first Thursday and said, "Hi, I'm Elena," like it was an AA meeting, and everyone nodded and waited. She exhaled. "I'm a nurse. I'm also in the middle of a separation from my husband because he tried to put my mother in assisted living without her consent in order to sell her house and use the proceeds to pay our debt. and I helped him for too long. Because I thought love meant defending him no matter what. And now I'm trying to figure out who I am outside of that story. Also, my garbage disposal is making a noise like it swallowed a fork. June clapped softly. "Oh, honey," she said, "you're in the right place." The thing about telling the truth in front of witnesses who are rooting for you instead of judging you, it rewires you. Within 3 weeks, Elena's voice lost that panic shiver. Within 6, she had color in her face again. Within 8, she had changed her work schedule so she could study toward certification in geriatric care advocacy. Basically, being the person families are supposed to be, but often aren't. "I want to be the woman other women call before they sign anything," she said.
Good, I told her. That job needs to exist. I think it does, she said. It's just hidden in social workers and nurses and case managers and daughters. I want it to be a job with a business card. Tremblingization was the first time I believed she could be not just okay, but useful. And usefulness is such a nourishing word. Even Pastor Lee said, "I'm witnessing a resurrection in sneakers." Listen, men like Trent don't just slink away. They test the fence. 2 months after the court tossed his guardianship attempt, Trent came by the Marsh cottage to talk about co-parenting. Elena, to her credit, did not meet him alone. She called me, she called Soraya, and she called Deputy Oren, who happened to be in the area 5 minutes later, even though he lives 15 minutes away. Thumb showed up in a crisp button-down that said, "I am reasonable," holding a folder that said, "I am dangerous." Emma sat at the kitchen counter. Soraya leaned in the doorway like law enforcement's cousin.
Oren pretended to admire Bee's unicorn magnets. Elena stood by the sink, chin up, steady. Trent smiled like a commercial. "Elena," he said, "let's not make this ugly. We can work this out like adults, she repeated, flat. "Yes," he said, "for the children, for stability. You and I both know they need consistency. You can't provide that on a nurse's schedule that's always changing. And Miriam," he glanced at me, then back at Elena. "Miriam is, unreliable. She travels." He said travels, like other people say shoplifts. Elena didn't blink. "What do you want, Trent?" "I want the primary house," he said. "It's where the kids have their rooms. We'll do a week-on, week-off schedule. You can keep that rental by the swamp." "It's a marsh," Bee piped from behind Finn's fort of couch cushions. "Yes, honey, a marsh," Trent said without looking at her. Elena crossed her arms. "And finances?" "Well," he said, flipping open the folder, "there's still the HELOC and the joint card. And some personal loans. We need to talk about how you're going to cover your share. I've already talked to an advisor, and they—" "No," Elena said. Trent blinked. "I don't think you heard—" "No," she repeated. "No, I will not take on debt you created. No, I will not give you primary custody so you can continue to financially control me through the children. No, I will not figure it out while you keep the nice house and I keep the swamp. No." He tried smiling again. It didn't land this time. "Elena, be rational." "She is," Soraya said pleasantly. Trent stiffened. "I don't think this concerns you." Soraya grinned. "Oh, honey," she said. "I love when men tell me what concerns me." "It's like free entertainment." Oren cleared his throat. Loud. "Is there going to be yelling?" He asked the room like it was a weather report. "No," Elena said first. Trent was just leaving. "I'm not," Trent began. "Yes," Elena said, louder now, the kind of louder that is a lever. "You are. You will communicate through counsel. Do not return to this house without arrangement. Do not contact my mother. Do not contact our kids outside of scheduled calls. We are a team, remember. Rule 6. We don't hide stuff." His jaw jumped. Trent has a tell when he's cornered. His eyelid twitches, just once. It twitched. "This is not over," he said. "It is," Elena said. "You just don't like how it ended." He left with his folder like a cartoon villain carrying stolen blueprints. Oren walked him to the car. Soraya high-fived Elena like we were at a Little League game. I went to the sink and pretended to rinse cups because I could feel my heart beating a little too fast. Not out of fear this time, out of something close to pride. She had done that, not me. Her. After Trent drove off, Elena turned to me. "Did I do it right?" she whispered. "You did it," I said.
That's the whole trick. She sagged against the counter, shaking with adrenaline. I put my hand on her back and realized something very simple and very big. She did not need me to protect her anymore. She needed me to witness her. There is a difference. While all this was happening in Gulford, something unexpected arrived from Madeira. An email from Dr. Mendez, polite as ever. Certifications. Señora Calder, we have received contact from a Señor Silvio P. Almeida, who asserts a familial claim on the Rua das Mimosas apartment. He states that he is the son of your Aunt Lena's former partner, and that there was an understanding he would inherit. He is threatening to contest title. We await your instruction. Setbacks at the message, and felt a cold little line go down my spine. Manslaughter. Here we are. Magnesium has a ghost. Sickness. Adult Lena had never married. She had companions, as my mother called them with a raised eyebrow and a faint smile.
She'd spent most of her last 15 years with a man named Paulo. I'd met Paulo twice. Brown hands, warm laugh, smelled like oranges and tobacco. He called me filha, daughter, like he meant it. I liked him. I didn't know Paulo had a son. Silvio, apparently, thought Aunt Lena had meant for the apartment to go to him. Meant. That word is a snake, legally useless, emotionally nuclear. I wrote back to Dr. Mendez. Please respond that I am willing to speak with Señor Almeida directly, with you present. I would like to understand his claim. Then I closed the laptop, made chamomile tea, and sat with the feeling. It wasn't fear, it was recognition. I knew this terrain. Family entitlement looks the same in every language. I had dealt with it in English. Now I would deal with it in polite Portuguese-inflected English, over espresso, instead of bad courthouse coffee. Same game. Elena saw my face. What's wrong? Nothing urgent, I said. Portuguese drama. Ooh, she said. That sounds spicier than ours. Do you need backup? I'll let you know, I said. I flew back to Madeira a few weeks later. Mrs. Klein said, "Bring me back a scarf that looks like it has opinions." Elena said, "Please text when you land." The kids said, "Can we come?" I said, "Soon." Dr. Mendez arranged the meeting at a cafe with a view of tiled roofs cascading down toward the bay. I arrived early, because that is who I am. He arrived on time, because that is who he is. Silvio arrived slightly late, because that is who Silvio is. He was in his 50s, graying hair slicked back, expensive sunglasses, an open-collar shirt. He kissed both my cheeks like we were cousins, and sat down like a man who expects to be heard. We ordered coffee. Nobody spoke until the cups landed. That's etiquette there. I like it. Finally, Silvio leaned in, elbows on the little table. "Señora Miriam," he said, using the Portuguese rhythm even in English. "First, I want to say I am not here to fight. I am here to honor my father. Good start. Always start with honor. It's softer than lawsuit. My father, Paulo, lived with Lena for 13 years. He continued. He took care of her when she was sick. He paid sometimes when she could not. He believed, she told him, that the apartment would be for him, for his boy. I nodded. I liked Paolo, I said. He called me Filha. He taught me how to cut mango without wasting any. Silvio smiled for the first time. He was very proud of that mango, he said. Yes, I said. He said Americans brutalize fruit. Silvio laughed. Then I said gently, but Paolo did not marry my aunt. And Lena's will was very clear. She left the apartment to me. She also left a small insurance policy to Paolo Silvio's jaw tightened. My father never saw that money, he said. I looked at Dr. Mendez. Dr. Mendez slid a folder across the table. We have records of transfer, he said. Paolo received 18,000 euros in 2017. He signed. Silvio blinked. He told me he got nothing. Maybe he didn't want you to feel owed, I said softly. Or maybe he spent it and didn't want to explain. Silvio's shoulders sagged. He had habits, he admitted. There it was. The truth curled at the edge of pride. I don't want to take your place, he said, but I was hoping maybe you would consider selling it to me. I can pay. Not market price, but close. I run boats now. We do tours. I could turn it into a rental for foreigners. Keep it in the family, if you understand. My heart did a small lurch for reasons that had nothing to do with money. Because what he was asking wasn't, give me what's mine. It was, make room for me in the story. I looked out toward the water. You could smell salt and sugar from the pastry case. I'm not selling, I said. He pressed his lips together. I see. I'm not selling, I repeated, but I might be willing to do something else. He blinked. Here is what matters to me, I said. This apartment Einstays loved. The rent that comes from it goes into a fund for older women who need a hand to push away from bad men and start over. That's my Green Porch Fund. I want an arm of it here in Madeira. Your father loved your aunt. Your aunt loved this island. I loved both of them, so I will not liquidate their memory. Silvio leaned back, frowning in thought. But I continued, there's no reason you can't be part of that. You run boats. You know people. You know need. You can help Philippa and Louis maintain the place, handle local errands, check in on tenants. In return, you draw a salary from the rental income, not a gift, a job, a partnership, and your father's name goes on the paperwork as the legacy partner. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. You would do that? He whispered. If we put it in writing, I said, and if you understand this is work, not inheritance, this is service, not ownership. His eyes filled so fast it startled me. My father, he said quietly, always said Lena was the first person who ever saw him as worth keeping around. He wanted to be worth something. He would smile at this. I hope so, I said. Dr. Mendez cleared his throat like a man who is secretly sentimental but wishes not to be caught. Then I will draw an agreement, he said. Silvio nodded quickly, wiped his face with the back of his hand, then laughed like a boy. Mangoes, he said. He yelled at me for eating a mango like a dog. Good, I said. He should have. We all laughed, so that's how it happened. The Rua das Mimosas apartment became the Orange Light Project, a sister branch of the Green Porch Fund. The rent from the apartment went into a small account in Madeira. Silvio handled logistics locally. Filipa screened the applications. Same deal. 1,000 euro microgrants for older women who needed to get out, get started, get stable. When we signed, Silvio kissed my cheeks again and said, Obrigada, Mai. Thank you, Mother. I did not correct him. It's never good news when the phone rings at 3:14 a.m. You wake up already braced, hand shaking for a receiver that's mostly air. It was Noah. His voice was low, too calm. Nana, don't freak out. Mom's okay. We're at the ER. My stomach turned to static. Tell me slowly, I said. Start with, Mom is breathing. Mom is breathing, he said. She just passed out in the kitchen. I was out of bed and grabbing my sweater before he finished. Where are you? County General. Room B14. I'm on my way, I said. Drive careful, he said, and I could hear the man. He'll be in his voice. I mean it, Nana. Drive careful. I will. I lied and hung up. I'm not a reckless driver. At 74, you don't get to be reckless and keep your insurance. But that night, I bent speed limits until they whimpered. When I walked into B14, Elena was sitting upright on the gurney, pale but annoyed. An IV dripped into her arm. Noah sat in a plastic chair, arms crossed, jaw tight. Finn was curled in a ball, asleep in another chair. Bee was braiding and unbraiding the end of her hoodie string like she was performing minor surgery. What happened? I asked, breathless. Elena rolled her eyes. I got lightheaded. I went down. Noah caught me. He overreacted. You hit the floor, Noah said. You were out for like 10 seconds. I underreacted. A nurse poked her head in. Vitals still stable, she said to me reassuringly. Looks like classic overwork. Under fuel, under sleep. We're doing labs to be sure. Doctor will be in translation. Exhaustion. I looked at my daughter. Her eyes were sunken. Her skin had that grayish tint of running on adrenaline too long. Her hair was in a messy bun that had given up the will to live. She'd lost weight. I hadn't noticed because it had been gradual, like a shoreline eroding. Nurse said 120/80, pulse strong, Elena muttered. Blood sugar fine. I'm fine. You're not fine, I said gently. You're upright. That's not the same. Tears sprang into her eyes, and she looked furious at them for showing up. I'm trying, she whispered. I know, I said. That's the problem. You're trying to do 3 lives worth of work. Your body finally sent an email to management that made her laugh, cry, a messy little sound. Bee climbed onto the bed and leaned into her. You scared me, she said. So small it cracked me. Elena kissed the top of her head. I scared me too, she admitted. The doctor came, did his polite ER speech, recommended rest, which is like telling the ocean to just calm down a bit. He gave her a note for 3 days off work, which made her roll her eyes again. I don't even get paid sick leave, she said. Now you do, I said. She frowned. What do you mean? I'm paying you, I said. 3 days, full salary. Call it a grant. Call it severance from your old self. Call it whatever you want.
You're off for 3 days. I can't. You can, I said, because I said so. I'm invoking mom law. She let out a long breath. Okay, she whispered. Okay. That was the moment I realized. The fund wasn't just for women who show up at my porch. The fund was for us, too. Me and Elena. Me and every version of Elena I'd been for other people. Me and the younger me, who never got rest because rest is for ladies who don't have to prove they're worthy to be in the room. So we made a new line item on the corkboard the next day. Emergency grace. Dismissing, like the name. Grace, like the concept. Grace, like the thing you owe yourself before you drop. The relief later, Elena looked like herself again. Not the old self, the new one. The tired rage had turned into a steady hum. The shaking in her shoulders was gone.
That night, she sat next to me on the couch and leaned her head on my shoulder the way she hadn't since she was 17 and thought her life was ending because she'd failed her driving test. Hey, Mom, she said. Yes, love? Thank you for not saying, I told you so. I'm saving that for when you're 80 and try to climb on a ladder, I said. She laughed, sleepy and soft. Deal. We never planned a party. It just happened because that's what women do. We call something a little get-together. And suddenly there are 72 deviled eggs and folding chairs borrowed from 3 churches. October marked 6 months since the guardianship attempt, and 3 months since Elena served Trent with official separation papers, which he referred to loudly as legal ambush. It also marked 20 grants given out by the Green Porch Fund and 4 by the Orange Light Project overseas. Philippa sent photos from Madeira of 3 women standing outside the apartment building on Rua das Mimosas, each holding an envelope and smiling so big the smiles looked illegal. Underneath, she texted, "We did it, Mai." Orange Light on Auntie Abby printed the photos and taped them up under our corkboard, next to Poppy's quilt pattern and Clara's new apartment key. Pastor Lee said, "We need to mark this." And I said, "Okay, we'll do coffee." And she laughed and said, "Miriam, you sweet, naive violin. We're doing brisket." She was not kidding. She brought brisket. Maritza brought tamales. Ivy brought cornbread. June brought potato salad with too much paprika because there is no such thing as too much paprika at a potluck. We set up tables in my yard under strings of white lights that Noah and Finn helped Oren hang because Oren happened to have a ladder in the truck. Bea made a sign on poster board that said, "Green Porch, Orange Light, Ladies' Night," and put hearts all over it in case someone didn't understand the vibe. Women came, not just the ones who'd gotten grants, not just our porch regulars. Women I barely knew, women I knew from the grocery store, women who had seen our corkboard and said, "I brought brownies. Can I sit?" They could. Halfway through the evening, Elena tapped her glass with a fork. Can I say something?" she asked. Everyone quieted. She swallowed, cheeks pink. 6 months ago, I thought I was a good daughter because I sent my mom money for her prescriptions and reminded her to hydrate. She said, "Turns out I was trying to manage her like a patient instead of loving her like a person. I let a man tell me my own mother was a problem to be solved. And I was so busy defending him that I didn't see I'd turned into someone I don't even like." Murmurs, nods, a few soft mm-hums from the back, the universal church sound of, "We've been there." Elena took a breath. "When my mom disappeared, I thought she was punishing me," she said. But she wasn't. She was saving her life. And then when I finally hit bottom, she didn't just catch me. She made me climb. She made me face what I'd done. She made me tell myself the truth. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. And it's the best thing I'll ever give my kids. Because they're gonna know that love and respect are the same word in this house. From now on, somebody, June, I think, said amen under her breath. Elena's voice cracked. "So, Mom? I just wanted to say thank you for building the porch, for letting me back on it after I spit on it, for showing me how to stand on it instead of just wave from the steps. I love you. I respect you. I will never confuse those two again." The yard got so quiet you could hear the string lights buzzing. I didn't cry right away. I felt something else first. Release. It felt like someone had been standing on my collarbone for 5 years and finally stepped off. Then I cried, and because women are highly contagious creatures, the whole porch cried. Maritza sniffed. "Girl, you're gonna make my mascara quit," she muttered, dabbing at her face with a napkin. Elena laughed through her tears. "Also," she added, wiping her cheeks, "I want you all to know I filed the LLC paperwork for Calder Advocates. I'm officially starting my geriatric navigation service next month. If any of you need someone at the table when a hospital social worker starts talking fast, or when a bank officer forgets to slow down, or when your son-in-law prints papers and calls them care, call me. I'll come sit next to you. I'll bring highlighters. I'll bring water. I'll bring witnesses. Cheers. Real cheers. Oren whooped. Poppy clapped like she was applauding at an opera. Ivy shouted, "You get 'em, baby," in a voice that could shatter stained glass. I watched Elena dimpling under that noise like a teenager, and I thought, this is what comes after humiliation if you don't roll over and quit. This is what happens when women put their backs to each other and say, "Okay, nobody falls." This is the antidote. Time does a funny flip after crisis. The days are slow, the years are fast. 3 years later, everything is different and nothing is unrecognizable. I am 77 now. My knees click like Morse code when I stand. My hair has gone from silver to white to, "Oh, wow, you look like you know secrets." The doctor says my blood pressure is annoyingly perfect. I told him it's because I fired stress as my supervisor. The green porch paint got refreshed twice, both times by Bai, who is now 11 and insists on a shade she calls Hope Green. We let her. The chips and scuffs remain visible under the fresh coat like rings on a tree trunk.
History is allowed to show. The Lee pot lemons we potted by the steps have not fruited, just like I predicted. But they've grown glossy leaves the size of my palm. Bea talks to them. She says, "You're doing great," and "Grow if you feel safe," and "You don't have to be useful to be loved." I don't correct her gardening technique. Men Noah is 15 now. He's taller than me and has taken to standing next to me in grocery lines like my personal security detail. Once, an impatient man behind us sighed loudly and muttered, "Come on, lady." Noah turned and said, in the calm voice of a future lawyer, "We're all aging in this line, sir. Be polite about it." And the man shut his mouth like he'd swallowed a fly. Finnigton is 12 and tells everyone he wants to be an ethical hacker for good. He also cooks eggs for Bea in the morning, so she can be strong for her lemon work. He has Paolo's mango pride, except with scrambled eggs. Peacefully, Bea wants to be a porch founder in 10 cities.
I told her that's a job I fully support. Elena is 46. She wears her hair shorter now, and her walk has changed. She walks like a person who knows where she's going and doesn't feel the need to apologize for taking up space on this sidewalk. Calder Advocates is real, and I mean real. She has an office over the bakery downtown. People call her from 3 counties over. She goes into hospital rooms and social services meetings and family conferences, and she sits next to women who would otherwise be alone at tables where men in golf shirts try to move signatures around like puzzle pieces. She looks those men in the eye and says, "Repeat that in plain language." And that's not what that means. And her answer was no. We're done. The first time she told me she'd done that for a stranger, she cried so hard she hiccuped. I felt like I was sitting next to you and next to me at 30 and next to every woman who ever thought the smart people must know better, she said. And I thought, nope. We know better now, Trent. Trent is Trent. Legally, he and Elena are divorced. It got ugly, then expensive, then over. He has the primary house, but he does not have primary custody. The kids spend time with him like it's visiting a weird uncle. He tries sometimes. He fails sometimes. He complains sometimes. He tells anyone who will listen that I poisoned Elena against him. I don't correct him. Let him have his villain origin story. I've got bigger things to do than edit his mythology. Here's the part that satisfies people who like tidy endings. Trent attempted to file a second guardianship petition last year. This time, not for me, but for his own mother. He tried the same move, except his mother is as mean as a wet hornet and hired Elena. Elena marched into that courtroom with documentation, recordings, and a face like marble. She dismantled him, piece by piece, in front of a judge who'd already read his name in my file from years before. He lost.
His mother sent me flowers with a card that said, "He came by it honestly. He didn't get to keep it." I kept the card on the fridge for a month. The Green Porch Fund? Still going. We've given out over 100 small grants now. Some were life rafts, some were launch pads, some were bandages. A few were, honestly, fun money. And we said yes to those too. Because sometimes what a woman needs is not rent. It's a weekend where she gets to feel like more than a caretaker. We trust women to know their own emergencies. Radical concept, I know. Slimlight Project in Madeira is thriving. Silvio sends monthly updates with photos of women holding envelopes and smiling like dawn. He signs every email, "Obrigada, mãe e irmã," which means thank you, mother and sister. And I cry every single time like some grandmother in a Hallmark movie. Felipa and Luis plant marigolds on the balcony at Rua das Mimosas every spring in honor of Aunt Lena and Paolo. The trumpet player across the hall has gotten good enough that strangers clap from the street. The apartment smells like coffee and old wood and clean sunlight. I spend 1 month a year there. I sit on that balcony and I write letters, real ones, on paper, to people who sat on my porch, to my grandchildren, to myself at 50, at 30, at 19. I tell those younger Miriams things I wish she'd heard. You are not lucky that people tolerate you. They are lucky you show up. Your silence just because your voice makes them uncomfortable. If they call you a burden, ask them to lift you. If they can't, you're not a burden. They're weak. I mail some of those letters. I burn some. Some I fold and put under flower pots, like offerings to whoever runs the universe's lost and found. Elena and I, we're good. Not perfect. Don't get sentimental on me. We still get sharp. We still step on each other's nerves. She still tries to overmanage me sometimes, and I still sometimes slip into my old role and try to fix feelings with casseroles. We are works in progress. But now, when one of us steps wrong, we say it out loud. Zeal. Hey, that tone felt like old Elena, I'll say. Hey, that guilt gift felt like old Mom, she'll say. And we reset. She calls me at least twice a week just to tell me nothing. I answer unless I'm napping. If I'm napping, I text later. Was asleep, still alive, what's for dinner? She answers with a photo of whatever Finn burns slightly. We sit on the porch with coffee and talk about logistics like money and wills and medical directives, out loud, in daylight, with no shame. We normalize things nobody ever normalized with us. You know how powerful that is? To say, if something happens to me, here's who gets to decide? We wrote it all down. We notarized it. We keep copies in a folder labeled, "This is not morbid, it's smart." Contested are not a secret anymore. And Mother's Day? Mother's Day is different now. This year, Mother's Day crept in on a Sunday morning so gentle even the gulls sounded polite. We celebrated at the Marsh Cottage because the porch at my place is too popular on Sundays now. There were flowers in a jar. There was coffee and cinnamon rolls Finn insisted on making from scratch, which means they were underdone in the middle and perfect on the outside, like most of us. The kids gave me a present, which they made me open first. It wasn't a necklace, though for the record, Elena wears my mother's pearls now, proudly, like armor. It wasn't money. It wasn't a kitchen gadget. It was a book. Sickness. A blank book. Refreshed to clear, Thee had glued a photo of my green porch and written in purple marker, Phillies. The Green Porch Handbook, by Nana Miri, and also us. I smiled. What's this? Slamming. It's for you to write down how to fix the world, B said. Noah rolled his eyes affectionately. It's not that, he said. It's kind of that. Finn leaned forward. It's for the rules, he explained. The real ones. So when we're old, we don't forget them. My throat did that tight, aching thing it does right before I make everyone in the room uncomfortable with my feelings. Then Noah handed me an envelope. And you have to read this one out loud, he said, with a mischievous grin. And for half a second, just half, I flashed back to that first awful card. I felt it in my bones. I saw Trent's smirk, Elena's strained laughter, my own stunned face. Elena saw my eyes flicker. She reached over and squeezed my hand under the table. It's okay, she whispered. I exhaled and opened the envelope. The card was handmade. Thick paper, colored pencils. Smudged corners where somebody erased and redrew. Jeff cleared my throat and read. Roses are red, marsh grass is tall. Termed, you're not a burden. You're the backbone. You're all. Some people said move her, like your furniture on wheels. We say move over so Nana can sit and heal. You built a porch where tired hearts rest. You taught us no is sometimes yes. Like, no, you can't treat me like trash. Pretext. And yes, I deserve more than cash. Semiconductor for staying when we pushed you away. Thank you for leaving so you could stay. Signed, the team. Actual team, not fake team. Noah, Finn, B, Mom. I laughed, I cried. I did both at once, which at my age sounds like a coughing fit with bonus emotion. Columbus waited. Again, B demanded. Read it again. Charging. Slower. And this time I wasn't trembling. Because this time, the words weren't a weapon. They were a mirror, and mirrors are kind if you've done the work to like who's in them. I hugged each kid so tight Noah said, Oxygen, Nana. Finn pretended to suffocate against my shoulder, and then grinned.
B whispered in my ear, You're never going to Silver Pines unless you want to go to Silver Pines. And then we're all going with you, and we're going to decorate your room with lemon trees. Elena sat across the table, tears on her cheeks, smiling with her whole face. No guilt dog on her shoulders, no flinch, just my daughter. Happy Mother's Day, Mom, she said softly. And I said the truest sentence I've ever spoken in my life. It is. Later that afternoon, when the kids went outside to help Bee teach the lemon trees self-confidence, Elena and I sat alone in the kitchen. The light was soft. The sink was full. The house smelled like cinnamon and salt air and faint cleaning spray. Elena tapped the blank green porch handbook with her nail. You gonna write in it? Yes, I said. What's the first rule? She asked. I thought for a long moment. Then I picked up the pen. On the first page, I wrote, 1. Love is not letting people hurt you because they're family. On the second page, 2. You're allowed to keep what you built, even if other people want to manage it for you, especially then. On the third, 3. Money is just a tool. Respect is the currency. On the fourth, 4. If someone calls you a burden, hand them something heavy. If they drop it, you walk away. On the fifth, 5. No is a complete care plan. And on the 6th, I wrote the line I want on my stone someday. 6. Sit on the porch. Tell the truth. Pass the plate. Elena read each one and nodded. We're keeping these, she whispered. We are, I said. I don't believe in perfect endings. The only stories with perfect endings are lies and obituaries, and the first one is disrespectful, and the second one you're not around to enjoy. I believe in circles. The circle looks like this. Aunt Lena leaves a sunlight apartment to me because she knew one day I'd need somewhere to go that wasn't built by anybody who thought I owed them gratitude for existing.
I go there and remember, I am not disposable. I come home and build a porch where other women can remember, they are not disposable. My daughter, who treated me like a problem to be placed, becomes a woman who stands between other daughters and other Trents and says, absolutely not. My grandchildren grow up thinking it is normal for Nana to run a microgrant network that the whole town low-key knows about, and nobody dares mock because they've seen what happens to people who mock it. We plant lemon seeds, we'll never see fruit, and clap anyway. Shimdi. That's the circle. Here is one more piece of it. After this last Mother's Day, we held porch circle on a Thursday night like usual. New face at the table. Woman in her early 60s, hands fidgeting with her sleeve. I'm Laura, she said. My daughter says I'm dramatic. My son says I should be grateful he hasn't put me in a home yet. They joke about it in front of me. At dinner. On speakerphone. Like I'm already gone. Around the table, shoulders went square, heads tilted, eyes narrowed. We'd all heard variations. Laura swallowed. My question, she said, voice shaking, is, how do you make them stop? Nobody rushed in. We've learned not to jump with advice. We let the quiet sit like a warm blanket for a moment. Admissions. Began folded my hands on the table and said, oh, sweetheart, pull up a chair. We're going to tell you a story. And we did. We told her about a card that wasn't funny. We told her about a plane ticket to an island with orange trees. We told her about guardianship papers that got laughed out of a courtroom. We told her about brisket and grants and a 15-year-old boy who tells grown men to be polite. We told her about a porch and a daughter and a town that decided old woman means founding member, not burden. Patriots Laura cried. Laura laughed. Laura stayed for peach cobbler.
Laura left with $1,000 and Soraya's card and Oren's accidental drive-by schedule on a sticky note. When she hugged me at the end of the night, she whispered. I thought I was crazy. I hugged her right back. You're not, I said. You're early. That's different. She pulled away and wiped her face. What should I do first? She asked. Write a new rule, I said, nodding at the green porch handbook. We've got room. So she did. Her rule was simple, 7. I get to stay in the story. We all said, like church ladies, because at that point, what else do you say? It was perfect. That's where I'll leave you for now. Not because the story is over, but because the porch is full, the sun is low, and B is yelling from the yard. Nana! Finn says lemon trees can't hear compliments from this far away, but I think he's wrong, and we need data. I have to go gather data and pass a plate and sit in a chair with chipped paint that other women have steadied themselves on. And keep the circle open always for the next woman who walks up the steps, wringing her hands, thinking she's the only one. She's not. Not anymore.